Hi everyone, welcome to the FRecap channel. Today we'll be recapping the movie Good Boy from 2022. The movie opens with a high-end culinary scene. Christian, a millionaire, is frying meat. He carefully divides the cooked dish into portions. One he artfully places on a plate, and the other he dumps into a metal bowl. He sets the bowl on the floor and calls Frank, a man dressed in a dog suit, crawling on all fours and eating off the floor. At dinner, Christian browses Tinder. He pauses at Sigrid and uses a premium super-like, immediately signaling his serious intentions and financial means. Later, Christian washes Frank, who has taken off the suit, and brushes his teeth. While lying in bed, Christian says it's time to sleep, and the dog obediently moves to the floor. But before drifting off, Christian sends a message to the girl he liked. Hi. In the morning, Christian has breakfast and feeds Frank dog food while continuing his chat with Sigrid. During his morning workout, Christian sends occasional messages. Eventually, the girl suggests meeting up. Carefully dressed in a sharp suit, Christian heads out for the date, making sure to ask Frank's opinion on how he looks. Once there, the guy drinks his beer eagerly, almost as if he doesn't believe anything will come of it. After finishing his glass, he's about to leave when Sigrid finally arrives, a short girl in sweatpants. She orders another beer and chats with Christian, occasionally checking her phone. It turns out she's studying psychology at a private school. Time flies during their conversation, and evening comes, prompting Christian to invite her back to his place. Sigrid agrees and is surprised by his massive house and wealth. Christian offers her some wine, casually mentioning that he lives alone and that the only pet in the house is a dog. Frank cautiously peeks at them, but stays in the other room. Christian shares that he inherited the house after his parents passed away. The conversation smoothly transitions to kisses, which lead them to the bedroom, with Frank still watching them. Waking up the next morning, Sigrid notices a man in a dog costume sitting on the floor, behaving like an animal. At breakfast, she continues to observe Frank, whom Christian refers to as his pet. Realizing that her psychology classes aren't enough to handle such a complicated situation, Sigrid decides to leave. Christian tries to explain, but his issues scare her. She asks him to drive her home, which he obediently does, apologizing along the way for not being upfront from the beginning. At her apartment, Sigrid tells her roommate about the date, even showing a picture of Christian. They learn that he's wealthy, having inherited millions from his father. Her friend convinces her that it's not worth dumping such a promising guy just because of some eccentric quirks. Together, they watch videos about the puppy play game, where one person acts like a dog and the other is their owner. Weighing her options, Sigrid gets ready to message Christian, but he calls first. Christian apologizes for not explaining everything right away. Sigrid admits that she overreacted. Millionaire eccentricities are different from marginal madness. They agree to have dinner together the next day. The next morning at school, Sigrid can't get her upcoming plans out of her head, making it hard for her to focus on the wisdom in her textbooks. That evening, she meets Christian again. She carefully brings up Frank, trying to understand what's really going on. According to Christian, Frank is an old friend with no one else in his life, and when Frank decided to see himself as a dog, Christian couldn't refuse to play along with his self-identity. To get to know Frank better, Sigrid pets him like a real dog. Frank becomes too eager to play with her, which scares the guest. Christian has to raise his voice to send the dog away. Later, sitting on the veranda, Christian admits that he never had real friends growing up. People hung around him because he had the best toys and an endless supply of sweets. Only Frank genuinely wanted to be his friend. Waking up in Christian's bed the next morning, Sigrid is served breakfast along with an apology from Frank for his behavior the night before. Sigrid is late for class, so Christian drives her to school. During lunch break, Sigrid meets her roommate, who, upon learning that her friend has caught a rich guy, immediately advises her to show that she's her own person and not as accessible as he might think. Returning to Christian's house, Sigrid tries to act like she needs to leave, but she succumbs to the millionaire's charm and stays the night again. Lying in bed, she suggests helping Frank with normal socialization, maybe even finding him a girlfriend. In response, Christian proposes that they go together for a weekend getaway to a countryside house to take a break from the city and enjoy some fresh air. Sigrid agrees happily, and the three of them, including Frank, arrive at a secluded house deep in the woods. Christian decides that it's the perfect time to mention that there's only one bedroom in the house, so the dog will be sleeping with them. Sigrid agrees, but it turns out to be just a joke. At lunch, Sigrid occasionally gets lost in her phone, which doesn't sit well with Christian. He suggests a digital detox for the weekend, putting away their phones for a couple of days. Reluctantly, the guests agree, handing over their devices, which Christian takes deeper into the house without telling Sigrid exactly where he stashed them. In the evening, Sigrid plays with Frank while Christian sips wine on the couch. Eventually, her attention shifts to him. Her heart craves celebration, and her body seeks indulgence. To meet her request, he goes to fetch another bottle of wine. At that moment, Frank removes his dog mask and warns her, speaking in a human voice, that Christian is dangerous and she must run. This sudden revelation brings back all her previous worries, which had been cleverly eased by his charm. The romantic mood vanishes, and she tells him she's tired and wants to sleep. The next morning, her first move is to sneak downstairs, but the front door is locked. She rummages through the pockets of the jackets hanging nearby, but he appears, curious about what she's doing. She says she wanted to get some fresh air, but the door's locked. He escorts her outside, admitting he always locks it at night. As they walk through the scenery, she asks if there is a second set of keys so she wouldn't have to wake him every morning, but he claims he only has one. Stress makes her nauseous, and at breakfast, she can't eat. Her stomach is too tight. Sigrid then asks for her phone, explaining she needs to call her supposedly sick mother. He agrees and hands it over but doesn't leave. Reluctantly, she calls her mom on speaker, and her mother reassures her that everything is fine. After the call, he accuses her of being addicted to her phone and takes it back. She suggests taking Frank for a walk while he thinks of what they should do later. During the walk, she questions Frank about what happened. He is wary that Christian might be eavesdropping, but reveals that he's a psychopath, and escaping from him won't be easy. Frank's plan is to attack while Christian sleeps. She refuses, but upon returning to the house, takes the opportunity to hide a kitchen knife under her pillow. He almost catches her when he comes to change the bedsheets. Fearing that he will find the knife, she insists on doing it herself. He isn't pleased, but reluctantly gives in. In the evening, she takes a shower when he knocks on the door, saying they need to discuss something. He waits for her in the bedroom with a serious expression and asks what happened to the bed. She denies everything until he finally points out that the bed is not properly made. It turns out to be a joke, though she isn't in the mood to laugh. Suddenly, he starts showing affection, but she isn't in the mood and pushes him away, causing him to lose his balance. He gets up and walks away to the kitchen. Over dinner, they eat in silence until she suddenly feels very tired. She wants to go upstairs to the bedroom, but her legs give way, and she almost collapses. He manages to catch her and helps her get up. Waking up early in the morning, the first thing she does is check under her pillow, but the hidden knife is gone. He wakes up next to her and asks her to follow him. He wants to show her something important. His demeanor seems cold and distant. He asks if she understands why they came to this secluded house, then plays a recording of Frank urging her to do something reckless. He then takes out the same knife from the drawer. "I'm very disappointed," he says, looking at her. He takes her to the back room where Frank is. He explains that the recording wasn't necessary. Frank confessed almost immediately. He unlocks the cage, removes Frank's mask, and pats him on the shoulder. Suddenly, Frank reacts sharply, leading to a scuffle. Amid the chaos, she sees an opportunity to grab the keys and run. When he notices her escape, anger takes over, and he decides to take Frank to the shed. Christian begins to subdue Frank. He gags him, blindfolds his eyes, and puts on noise-canceling headphones. He then pours water over him to increase the discomfort. At one point, he puts a plastic bag over Frank's head, but removes it before the situation becomes critical. After that, he places Frank in a cage and puts speakers nearby, blasting loud music to create a sense of pressure and control. Wearing his own noise-canceling headphones, Christian approaches the cage and loudly commands Frank to act like a good dog. Though scared, Frank tries to comply. Meanwhile, Sigrid, realizing she can't find her way out of the forest, heads back to the house with a stick in her hand. She hears noise from the shed and sees Christian tormenting Frank. While he can't hear anything, she sneaks up and hits him over the head with the stick. Christian, stunned, falls, and Sigrid tries to help Frank. However, Christian quickly recovers, grabs his bat, and tries to stop them. In a final moment of clarity, Sigrid realizes she needs to finish what she started. When she ends up on the floor, unconscious, Christian sits down beside her and starts crying. In the next scene, Christian is preparing breakfast. He fills a bowl with food and goes to the cage in the hallway. Unlocking it, he places the bowl inside and commands Frank to start eating. Then with another bowl, he heads to the shed, where Sigrid, dressed in a dog costume, is chained, doing her best to show obedience. Christian tells her that soon she'll be allowed to sleep inside the house, then returns to the kitchen. He fills one more bowl and places it on the floor in front of another cage. "Time for breakfast, son," he says, and a faint rustle is heard off-screen. That's all for now. Let me know in the comments if you enjoy these kinds of movies, and if you have ideas for other films you'd like me to recap, feel free to share.